Hi, I'm Apollonia. You may remember me from Purple Rain as leading lady to Prince, or from my band Apollonia 6. I've starred in films, TV shows, and I've been on the cover of magazines all over the world, including Playboy. I was also an LA Rams cheerleader. I'm going to take you with me. Welcome to my podcast, Apollonia Studio 6. Hi, I'm Apollonia, and welcome to my podcast, Apollonia Studio 6. And to my right is my wonderful co-host, Mr. Seth.
Yes.
Mr. Seth Nevlet.
Yes.
What's happening, Seth?
Well, today we have a person who is not just a friend of ours, but he is a unbelievably accomplished writer, director, editor, and for all our Purple fans out there, I know you know these books. These two right here. I have both of them. I've read both of them.
Yep.
They're great. And we are honored to have our friend Duane Tudahl here with us today.
Yay, Duane.
Wow.
Thank you so
I was
much.
looking around for who you're talking about. That's nice. Thanks.
Thank you. This is so great for you to stop by.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yes.
This is so awesome. I mean, I was really struggling to try to sleep last night because I had so much in, thinking about the books and, when I first met you and everything that you're doing and where you're at today. And
But we've known each other for, what, 30 years? Yeah. That's a long time.
Wow. How did you meet? How did the two of you meet?
I think we met at that you were doing a signing somewhere. And I think I introduced myself to you and told you what I was doing.
Right.
And you were very open to the idea of that. And I think at the time nobody was doing some sort of book like this.
Right.
And you came over to the house, which I still get so goofy about. Apollonia at the house.
I remember it was two stories, right? Yeah, like a townhouse.
Yeah, that was
in the
a
valley.
long time. It was in Studio City. Studio City. Uh-huh. And Brenda had been to the house too. So I actually have had two of the three of you. But I still look back and think, I still, it's crazy that you would embrace me and want to talk to me. I still think about that. So
I was your first.
Yes, you were.
Okay,
you were.
So I was,
yes,
you were the first. Take credit.
You were the first person that I talked to that had been a performer with him. At the same time, near there, I was talking to. I got to talk to Peggy McCreary, and some things like that. And all the stories all of you told were so dynamic. I thought there's so much to the music more than just the song you hear.
Right.
And there's you hear the song, but then to hear the background and understand why questions are always the most interesting to me, because you can ask when and anybody can say that, you can look that up, but a why question is one of those ones that you can I ask the question and then be quiet, and the person has to answer why they did that, and that explains the world. And so I when I got to ask you those kind of questions, it was just eye-opening. And I could also tell the affection you had, not just for the era, but for Prince himself. And this was all Prince was very much alive during this time. And so
30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So
spent hours with you. I remember at first I remember being apprehensive because I was like, oh, Prince is going to be all freaked out, right? What you talking about and to who? But you mentioned that you were very cautious and careful, which was very nice, saying this is what it was like to be in the studio with him. And we spent hours on that. I felt comfortable.
I'm glad.
And I mean, when you think about how long it took, the years of, writing. Writing takes.
I took about 20 years working on it. On the first book, but I was researching other books for the series at the same time. But about 20 years getting to the place where the first book was ready to be seen, and the first book was finished. First draft of it was finished about a month before he passed away. And it was, and then he passed away, and I thought, I don't know whether to come out with this book. I don't want to be that guy, because after somebody passed away, there's going to be tons of books and a lot of schlock, and I thought, I don't know if I want to do this, because, you just don't want, again, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that person that seems to be, chasing an ambulance. And but there were several people, and you've always been very supportive. That these are stories that should be told. And I really like that. That makes me very happy and you also you introduced me to Susan Moonsey,
Right.
Who's
the rest of the purple people.
And she never speaks to anybody. And although she'd probably talk to you. But
my little sister.
But she was wonderful, and Brenda was great. And all of you had details about, I think the thing is with Prince is not only are his albums important, but his side projects are important because it's part of his personality.
Right.
And he says, this is how I'd be as a girl group.
Right.
This is how I'd be as this. And you came in at a very transitional period with Vanity leaving, Purple Rain starting, and, you were the new kid.
That's right.
And that's the thing. I think the pressure of being the new kid, replacing somebody that they've toured with, that they all knew, argued with, loved, whatever it was, and you had to come in there and be not her.
Right, the new kid on the block.
Right, and be somebody different than her, but at the same time, not replace her, but be something unique. That's a heavy burden.
I think the practice came from my family moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I had to reinvent myself in different schools and be that I was always a new kid in school. So I would get bullied. I'd have to defend myself. So I think by the time I, stepped on, the ground of, Minnesota, I already knew the drill because I already been bullied like crazy in school. So when I got there, I was like, I was terrifying, though.
Oh, I bet.
It was terrifying. But I want to just we have all these questions.
Yes.
I know we're like getting into the meat already.
Sorry.
But you're author, editor, director.
Yes. Producer.
Now, where were you born? You got to tell us about, where.
I'm from Baltimore. It's funny. I'm listening to a book on tape about Dave Grohl, his book about storyteller. I don't know if you've heard it at all.
No.
But he's from outside D.C. And every experience he's talking about is things I did. Wearing my tough skin jeans because we couldn't afford Wranglers and crawling through gutters and, and stuff like this. And I just did all this stuff. But it was a place, I don't know if you guys have been to Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up. And I think once it was a nice small community right outside of Baltimore, a place called Joppatown. And I'm still friends with the people I grew up with. I just went back to my high school reunion.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've gone to every one of them. I want to make sure I keep in touch with these people.
Wow.
They knew me, and I want to make sure that it's, when you walk into a room and you know everybody, and you're still having a conversation 30, 40 years later, it's just something fun about that and something very easy about that. I like that. But that's where I'm from. I moved out to California in the late 87, I think it was.
You moved out by yourself?
By myself. Drove across the country, by myself. Packed up my Nissan Sentra with all my albums and tapes, and I had a little U-Haul thing on the truck.
What brought you to LA?
I dream of working in TV.
Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. I think like everybody, you feel like you either get on the bus and go out or you drive until your car breaks down.
You had family back home, brothers and sisters?
I had two sisters. I still have two sisters. And my parents are still alive.
Awesome.
So we've still got the intact five of us, which is great because my dad just had cancer and just had his shoulder replaced. So he's sort of turning into the Terminator.
Oh,
titanium thing. Yeah. But we still have the same family all together, and my sisters are fine. But anyway, I came out to Los Angeles to work in comedy.
Right.
And did stand-up comedy for...
So that's... Okay, so Duane Tudahl doing stand-up. You are... Because we know Duane as being, very conservative and private, and even more so now because of, what he's doing at the PPE. I don't know.
It's a weird one.
You got to tell me, what was that like?
It was fun. It was fun, but it was a great time. I did shows at the Laugh Factory and the Improv and Comedy Store here in town and a few other places around the country. And it's terrifying. I don't know if anytime you're on stage, it's terrifying. When you're on stage and trying to make people laugh, when it works, it's the best orgasm ever.
Right. Yeah.
When it doesn't, it's the saddest, most horrible thing. You're sweating and you're thinking this.
And nobody's laughing.
No, exactly.
Hecklers.
You're thinking these jokes worked at home.
Yeah.
It's awful when it does, and it can be. There's a lot of times, and a lot of people with entertainment in general, is you feel like a lot of people feel like they have something they have to they're missing in their life, and they want to get this accolade from the crowd, and whether it's laughter or whatever. And it just it was good for a while, but after a while, I realized most of my friends that did it were pretty lonely, and it's a lonely life.
Yeah,
and not
the sad clown life.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And so you're like, okay, well, I don't want to be that sad clown.
Were you funny in school?
Yeah,
and at
I got
home
best sense of humor in my senior class.
Yeah?
So I did. Yeah, so I kind of knew it was coming.
What clubs did you do out here that we might know of?
Improv.
Oh, wow.
Comedy Store.
Damn.
Ice House in Pasadena. Laugh Factory on Sunset, I think it is. And the Improv both in Santa Monica and in Hollywood. So a couple things like that. So it was fun. It was fun, but it was not. I didn't think it'd be enough to pay the bills.
Yeah.
It was not.
I'm watching a show called Hacks right now. I don't know if you guys have watched it. It's just.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's about a comedian and all that.
Wow.
So what would you consider your big break in entertainment, or your big break in, let's say, entertainment first?
Okay.
Was it entertainment first and then writing after, or was it simultaneous?
That's easy. I was working as a runner, which is a person that delivers contracts for a company called George Slaughter Productions. George Slaughter did Laugh In and
Legend.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to get in there.
Oh, wow.
And I started meeting people there. What I did, I wanted to work in the stuff. So I was young, single, and had energy. So I would stay late and work the editing equipment and trying to find ways to do this. And I cut something together and showed somebody, and they thought, it's great. And they called me in and said, would you like to work as an editor for us? And I went from being a runner to an editor, which is jumping over a few steps.
Yeah.
And I worked for a company. We were doing a special about who murdered JFK, and that company ended up making Cops. And so I did the pilot and the first 2 seasons of Cops as an editor.
Wow.
And this is back when nobody knew what it was.
This is 98, correct?
This was Cops was 88.
Yeah, 88.
Yeah,
Bad Boys.
Yeah.
What
I
you
remember
gonna
when
do?
the song Bad Boys came in the office. But what happened, I'll tell you a fun story about this, is they were filming in Florida, and they would be driving. Back then, there wasn't, you didn't have Sirius XM and stuff like this. So they'd find tapes in the in gas stations.
Yeah.
And they found the tape from the band. Was it Steel Pulse? Is that who did Bad Boys? I don't remember.
Maybe.
But anyway, but they found this tape and they played it. They went, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And they brought it back to the office, and they played it for everybody. And we all went, this is something we'd never heard before.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. It's still to this day.
Yeah.
People sing this, but I remember the first time they played it in the office, and we all went, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! It's really something." And another cool thing about Cops is the person, who did the original voiceover for the beginning of the show, Burt Lancaster.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that crazy? His daughter was working for the company, and she said, "Would you like my dad to do them?" Like, oh, yeah. So he did the Cops was filmed blah 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 only for the pilot. Only for the pilot. And I think they realized we can't afford Burt Lancaster, one of the greatest actors of all time.
Oh, wow.
Probably not be
That's
able to
some
do
great
that.
trivia.
Yeah, so that's a little something that on the pilot. I don't even know if in the reruns of the pilot, which was an hour-long episode, if they still even have it, they might have had to take it out because it was
right.
He's SAG and I'm sure.
Right.
But the cool thing about Cops was there was no music, there was no actors, there was no script, there was no anything. It was just that.
Yep.
And you cut it together and put it together, and it made a story, and that was the start of reality TV.
Wow. Yes, it was.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I moved out to Los Angeles to do comedy, and all of a sudden I'm in the reality TV.
It's out there like busting people and
Yeah.
filming, right? People
You know,
laying on the
and-
ground in their bun huggers.
And back then, it got to the point where people were excited to be on Cops.
Yeah.
No.
They'd be happy to be arrested because they were like, "Is this a Cops?" And they were like giddy about it, and we're going,
Wow.
"There's an odd flavor to this." But yeah, so I did that. And then I did Unsolved Mysteries for 4 years, which is a great show with Robert Stack.
That's a great show. And then you were doing one of my favorites. You were doing like UFO files.
Oh, I produced, that's another one. I produced and directed and wrote several seasons of a show called UFO Files.
Right.
And that was a kick because there's all kinds of crazy stories out there that you think, oh, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I want to make sure that people get a chance to see this stuff.
Right.
And when you actually have evidence and you can go and talk to judges or police officers that saw stuff.
Right.
But there's I don't know whether it's true or not, but I know that there's people that have enough evidence that you can take it to court and present this and say, I think this is, we always investigated these things as if it was a crime scene.
Right.
You go in there and say,
Right.
here's the evidence, here's, how it could have happened.
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating to me.
Do you believe?
I believe there's things I can't explain. And I think that in life, I think there's things my brain is this big and the universe is much bigger.
What do you think about NASA now releasing some of the footage?
I think it's fascinating. I want to see. I'm a firm believer in disclosure. If there's things out there, let's know. Yeah. You know, it's not going to hurt us. Somebody asked me one time we were at I was speaking at a seminar for UFOs, and somebody said, "What would you do if they announced that UFOs are real?" I probably wouldn't change anything.
Right.
I'd still go to church on Sunday. I'd still have my things. And some guy started yelling at me saying, "I can't believe you believe in this." And I'm going, "Well, you're here believing in something we can't prove, and you're just angry with me because I might believe in something you can't prove."
Yeah.
But it was like, I thought, I'd be totally happy to find out that we're not alone.
Yeah.
I'd be completely content with that. And they're also not coming to kill us or eat us.
Or eat us or something like
exactly.
that.
But other than that, I'm like,
Palladians.
Yeah, but you do know this stuff. Wow, look at you.
Well, I discuss a lot of it with Seth because I had an experience, I know, with my father. When you're driving down the road in Palm Springs late at night after going to the drive-in, my mom was sitting in the back seat, my little brother in the back seat, and we stopped at the stop sign, and we had a moment. The lights came down just like in Close Encounters, the radio. And my father, I remember he leaned out, and I leaned out to look, and he said, "No, mija," or he pushes me back. But I pushed, and I saw these lights going so fast that it just like in the movies, everything we felt electrical, pulses, electricity, like you were in the dryer. And then the next thing we know, it just was gone. And then you felt like a drop. And, my father, of course, is like, "Ay, mija, Dios mío." And when you see your father pale,
sure,
something happened.
Right.
So, and, people see a lot of stuff in Palm Springs, so who knows?
Yeah. No, but that's crazy. I know I've talked to several people that have had that kind of experience where it's something like that. There's an electric feeling, and then it's gone.
And it wasn't a chopper,
no, exactly. It was
aircraft,
Was there sound?
No, just like
that's the thing.
It was like this, just like a.
There's a story in Texas that had some people that they stopped on the road, and there was a thing that was floating that had flames basically coming up, and they touched the dashboard, and their hands sunk in the dashboard because the dashboard was so hot it melted. They had radiation sickness for the next 2 or 3 days. Yeah. Those kind of stories are just, there's things happening that I can't explain. Again, it could be a government thing. I don't know. But there's something, again, to expect myself to know everything about everything is silly.
Yeah.
So there's things out there that, and the more government documents that come out about this stuff, and you just realize there are things out there that I don't know. And so I'm totally open to what might be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Every week there's just discoveries of the galaxies
and
other galaxies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, we're so small.
How many planets are out there, and how many worlds that possibly could live in? And we always look at it as if our world is the normal one. Who's to say another planet isn't millions of years ahead of us?
Yeah.
And that jumping around in the galaxy is simple.
Yeah.
And to them, the physics we know might seem like child's play.
Right. Yeah. Elementary.
Yeah. They might be able to find ways to bypass that stuff. And maybe we're just like, why do they drop here? To look at us, I guess. Maybe we're an intergalactic stuckies.
There you go.
They stop in to go to the bathroom. Right. I don't know, but whatever the reason is, I think I do. A
little petri dish. Exactly. They're like, oh, there they are again.
I wouldn't be shocked if things have watched us. It would not shock me. Yeah. So.
Wow. Fascinating.
Wow.
Fascinating.
Wow. So.
That leads me to Prince.
Yeah, I was about to say, how did you make the leap from that into
History Channel, CBS
When I started
Fox.
doing those things, I did documentaries. I worked on documentaries for years. And I always thought a good documentary takes you into a place you've never been. I could do a documentary about Santa Monica Boulevard, but nobody cared because they could drive up and down there. You go into one of the houses on Santa Monica Boulevard. That's a treat. Oh, there's a murder that happened in the house. Okay, let's find out more about this. When you get to go behind a door that you're not allowed, everybody sits up. Yeah, I would like to be in there. Prince is the perfect example of what happens behind a closed door. Studio, close the door. Nobody goes in there unless he wants you in there. You do not get into that room unless Prince says you can stay, or he will say, "Does he have to stay?" He will. So the idea of what went on in there and the music of Prince was so important to me. From Controversy was the first album I really got into, but 1999 we played all during college, and we just played side 1, 2, 3, 4, just going through this, and then Purple Rain, that was the big one, and it just I always wanted to know more about it, and when I started working for a magazine called Uptown, we were exploring all these things and talking to a lot of people. Started talking to us. Yeah,
and Per Nilsson, right?
Yes, Per Nilsson.
Yep.
Who I still keep in touch with.
Yeah,
yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
we still talk. It's funny, we've known each other for 35 years or so. We've talked on the phone once.
Wow.
Once, and that was because I called his fax machine accidentally, and he answered in the middle of the night. And so I heard him say, "It's very late," or in a Swedish accent. And I said, "Okay, sorry." But we still email each other every week or two.
What year were you at Uptown?
Uptown was probably right around when I met you, which is 90-ish.
I see. Okay.
So right around there. So.
Don't you and I have the cover, right? Uptown, is that the reddish with Prince on the cover?
Yeah, I have a few.
Right. And I was in that, right? Too,
yeah.
Also?
Apollonia 6
so I remember
story,
that
Vanity 6 story, Jill.
Yes,
almost every protege.
Oh yeah, we went through everybody, and what was nice is I think that we went through it not salaciously, but to talk about the sessions and talk about these are the people, little background about the people, and try to find a way to invite people into what was going on.
Yeah,
and it makes you listen to the music in a new way when you understand, oh, that's why they did this, or that's where this came from, and you go, oh, okay, and I want to hear the song again, and I hear the bass now, oh, that bass is stolen from here, or the Chambers Brothers did this, and he lifted that and put it there, and that to me makes the music, it's like Questlove's book about music. I don't know if either of you read that. It's that kind of stuff where you're just going, there's a link, and there's a thread to all this stuff, and I love that stuff. That fascinates me.
Yeah,
so I'm a music nut.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Uptown was the first, probably one of the first magazines that I bought and I could only get it in record stores.
Tower Records.
I could only get it in a record store. And I learned, there were things like, I learned about Manic Monday, being Apollonia 6. I learned about Glamorous Life. I learned about Oliver's House. I learned about all of that stuff from Uptown magazine originally.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. And so Uptown for a fan was like a unbelievable source.
Thank you. That
definitely.
That makes me feel really good. I mean, I was just a writer and a researcher when Pierre did his books, I was a researcher for that stuff and did a lot of the interviews for it. And it was a blast. A guy named Alan Freed, local, not Alan
I was just saying, I thought Alan Freed.
Not the Alan Freed, another Alan Freed, my age, was also the researcher on this. And between the two of us, we interviewed most of the people that we used for that. And it was across the spectrum of all the people we talked to and got some great information. And I always loved the fact that people, back then it was a little more tricky because people were a little more cautious about talking. And I understood, when Prince was around, people were a little more cautious about talking. But people were very open. And I think as long as they're saying the truth, which a lot of you guys are real searchers of the truth. And I think that's important.
That's what I call myself. I was # truth seeker.
See,
on my social media.
I love that. But when you're searching for the truth, there's always going to be people that push back.
Oh yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. You're an outspoken one, so I don't doubt that.
I have the confidence that you have confidence in the truth. I believe in Christ and God, and I know that I'm going to meet my Maker at some point. So I want to make sure that I don't have any regrets and tell it like it is, even when it's bad.
Right.
And tell the truth, because the truth will set you free.
It's easier to remember.
Yeah,
Much
that's right.
easier to remember.
What was the line that Mark Twain said? Or was it? It's always you always remember the truth because it's
It happened.
People forget.
I'm sure he said it much more poetically than that. But,
people forget their lies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You said you can't remember all the. We've all done things in our life where they're going trying to explain it, and you go, God, I can't keep this up because now it's falling apart. It's easier to just say this is the story. Now the tricky part for me is I wasn't there, so I have to rely on everybody telling their story, and sometimes they contradict. And that's going to happen even in life. My sisters and I will sit there talking about our youth, and that's the way it happened. No, this is the way it happened.
Did you ever meet Prince?
No.
See, now, that's fascinating. That he is, right now, after 30 years, I met you 30 years ago. To this day, you look at Duane Tudahl as being the Prince expert. It's incredible. Seth is an expert in all that is purple. He knows more about me. No, you wore that dress and that was the event this year. And I'm like, just the information that, he has with,
Well, you guys were, the thing I keep noting with you guys is you guys are working nonstop. And there's no time to sleep and no time for sometimes memories to stick. And so sometimes as an outsider, we can see this stuff and we can link this stuff in a way that brings a new viewpoint to this. And what's fun is comparing the two. And sometimes I've had people say, I was never on stage with Prince or whatever. And I'm like, here's a photo. Of you. And they're going, oh, you're right, huh? And they've completely forgotten. But I think when you have so many magical experiences, and I say magical because to the rest of us, it is, there's going to be some things that kind of fall off to the side and aren't always recalled. And I think that it's interesting because a lot of stuff I've talked with you about, I've then had Brenda talk about, or had Susan talk about, or Peggy McCreary talk about, and a lot of it jives. But there's times that people go, "This I don't remember it like that."
Right.
And I've had to say in the books, this is what Sheila says, this is what Jesse says.
Right.
They were both there. I wasn't there, and I have to make sure all your voices are heard.
Right.
Whether or not I can prove exactly what is said. These are the memories you guys have, and you guys are the storytellers.
Right.
I'm my goal in my books is to get me the hell out of the way and let you guys tell as many stories. So I'll use as many quotes from you guys as possible, or memories. Sometimes people have lyrics, and it's fun to see this stuff because there's all these pieces in a big puzzle, and and sometimes I'll have a whole section written and a new piece will come in and it'll like, I gotta change this whole thing.
Right.
And that's difficult because you're like, I settled.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to do this.
Well, you should enjoy these.
Uh-oh.
Out of the vault of Apollonia.
Let's see. What we can
I have
do.
a vault and archives.
Oh, wow.
That's in a Spanish villa. I wrote that.
I love this. Well, in a Spanish villa, I know that you had, because that was, the funny thing is you've talked about this stuff, people say that you're coming out with things, talking about this now. You talked about some of this stuff with me.
A long time ago.
I was going to say
30 years ago.
30 years ago. Some of the things that you're saying now, you did not say publicly.
Yeah,
and
no.
You said this stuff back then.
Yeah.
And I remember probably spitting my drink across the room going, what?
Yes.
And
that's the beauty of, like I said, the truth and having the proof and
I love this stuff.
Having your book and
the thing is, I with my book and things like this, the trick is, I've had things I've written and then found out more about later. For example, the paperback version of both books has updated information in it that after it's been published, people go, I have a diary. From this journal, and I have to sometimes go and switch days slightly. In the paperback for the new book, there is a all of January. I talked to Susie Davis, who was Sheila's keyboard player, and she said, "You know what? I got a journal here," and so I realized something that I thought happened on this date happened on this date.
Right.
So, and she said I sang background on these things, and Prince was not always good about giving credits at times. This is the other thing, and when it comes to songs, I don't write songs, so I can't say who wrote, who did. I do know from the things I've heard are the things that you guys inspired. And, Happy Birthday, Mr. Christian. Right. Susanna Melvoin with Starfish and Coffee. Right. You have songs that Brenda with, some of the stuff on some of this. You have people that were there, we're talking, and everybody's told me that you can say any joke, any line, anything you say is fodder for music he's going to do. Oh, yeah. Whether he not credits the person on that is another thing, but he's often would be like, if you're going to feed a machine of all the stuff he's doing. Now, for example, beginning of 1984 was recording the last parts of Purple Rain, all of the Apollonia 6 album, all of the Family album in the summer, most of the Time album. This is just within 4 or 5 months recording 3 or 4 full albums of stuff that are all great. Yeah. you got to find a inspiration. This guy didn't get out as much, so he had to have you guys coming in bringing inspirado,
right?
And you can't manufacture inspirado, and so it's one of these things that I think each one of you brought. He could be singing about a sandwich that he wasn't happy with, but there was something that all of you guys brought into it, and I, as a writer, I can tell you I'm inspired when I hear somebody or read something. I'm like, that's a cool turn of a phrase. Now, if I switch that a little bit, turn that on its head, I got a new thing. And I think that you can see jokes and stories and the one you just showed me, the in Spanish Villa. You've told me that was based on this and this family things and and I find that to be fascinating because this has to come from somewhere. That said, Prince would find the inspiration where he needed to, and he had a certain group of people he trusted around him, and he would be inspired by you guys, and you guys would be inspired by him.
Right.
But he was Prince no matter what. He was going to be writing Prince stuff no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that one person. I think that you look at the course of his career, he's got a lot of muses.
Right, throughout the decades.
Yeah, and the consistency is it's Prince. Okay, but when you've got a story like Happy Birthday, Mr. Christian, which happened to you,
right? Yeah.
And he's like, hey, tell me more about that story, and
right.
That's fascinating to me. Or Oliver's House, or Glamorous Lake,
Wipe the Lipstick, and
yeah, there's all these different things, and I know Sheila also inspired him on things, and I think he loved women, and he loved hearing your stories, and he loved experience on this stuff, and there's certain people he embraced. First duet was with you, and the fact that he had not done a duet before Take Me With You.
What an honor.
That's crazy.
We just got to get the duet put back on the when they do the release for the 40th, isn't it?
Yeah.
They took out duet with Prince and Apollonia.
Well, they had to fix that.
So they have to fix that.
Somebody has to fix that.
Yeah.
Financially, I'm not getting paid anymore.
But that's
these things.
It's the first. I mean, I make sure I talk about that in here. Is it's in January of '84. It's the first time he's ever done a duet, and it's for the movie. But the fact is, with you, is
remarkable.
Yeah, I mean that if he's done duets after that,
right? But
you started that, and so he must have had a trust in you in that way that that inspired him. They thought, this is important to me.
Yeah.
And he's not going to put something on his album that's not important to him.
Right.
Because he has great songs that don't make the album.
Right.
Just because it's a great song doesn't mean it's going to make the album. In fact, if it doesn't fit the vibe and doesn't fit the story, and with Purple Rain, every song is important in that movie, and every song is in the order, except for the last two, of when they appear in the movie. And so there's a reason for this. And that song was going to be put on to Apollonia 6.
Right.
And then taken off there, which is kind of unfortunate at times because I think that would have brought a lot more attention to your album.
That's exactly his plan, that he wanted to put the duet there. And then he comes to my place, right? He says, I've got news. And I said, what is it? He says, well, the duet, they're going to put in the soundtrack. I said, oh, okay. He goes, no, you should be happy. Because it's going to be in the soundtrack. You'd make a lot of money. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. So then we had the other songs, right? I wanted to bring my booklet that Prince bought for me, my little diary.
Oh, yeah.
Where he would rip the pages, where I would write my poetry and my haikus, right? I learned my haikus in Rancho Mirage Elementary School. Okay. They used to call classrooms pods. And he would go through all, he goes, I'd start writing. I would say something and he'd write it down. Because you have a way with words. My publishing company, at the time I told him, I said, my company's going to be called Ms. B. Haven. I said, it's either that or Fanny Behind. So I loved all those, play on words.
Right.
So he started reading can I read your poetry? Is it okay? I said, sure. And we started to write. And that's where my mother, who just passed away, not that long ago.
My condolences.
Thank you. We co-wrote The Glamorous Life. We co-wrote Manic Monday. Those are all my poetry, my poems and haikus. Over at my apartment on Kings Road, over at Le Parc, and then at Sunset Sound Recorders. One of the engineers that was there saw us working, writing. When we did the lyrics, my Manic Monday lyrics disappeared. And I thought, to Prince, I was like, I got to go through his folder and take it, right? Because that's mine. When you think about it, the copyright is both of ours because in the paper you could see my writing, right? That's my handwriting.
Yeah, the Julian's auction.
The Julian's auction.
Do you remember the Julian's auction that happened in 2013?
It's right there.
Manic Monday? Is that the,
yes.
Yeah.
Is that the one that says at the top,
yes.
Apollonia 6? Is that the one?
Yeah, this was 2014. He was still living. And Julian's acquired many of his
lyrics,
lyrics out of the book.
Right.
And one of them was Manic Monday.
Right.
And interestingly enough, in the description.
Yeah, at the top here it says.
Yeah, Apollonia 6. Yeah. But look at the description that Julian's puts for Manic Monday.
The other writing.
Another hand, perhaps Apollonia's.
Yes, so that's my writing in there.
See, and this is the area that I get completely confused, and I can only hear what you guys say, and you know,
right. You're a spectator.
Yeah, I am completely a spectator on this stuff, and people have asked me, "Are you saying that these people, whoever it is, whether you or somebody else, wrote the music?" I'm like, no, I don't think. I think Prince was the music guy, and there's no denying what he did. I don't know the stories of where these songs come from, and I don't know where the phrases come from, and I don't know. But I can say that you had told me some of this stuff literally 3 decades ago.
Right,
so when people say
ago.
that you came behind, you know,
consistent
after you passed away and you came out with this, I can say that no, I've got recordings of you and I sitting around talking about this, and you said most of the stuff. And your story hasn't changed over the past 30 years, just privately. And
thank you.
Yeah, so I will say that, again, I can't attest to the validity of any of this. This is the story you told me back then. So you were saying this when Prince was alive.
Right.
So
yeah, and Prince and I would talk about it. The Manic Monday came from a day. I said, wouldn't it be great if we had a day after Sunday before Monday? My I Don't Have to Run Day, Monday. He goes, that's a song. So you can start writing. So I started to write that. You know, the same with The Glamorous Life. I took him to the Max Factor Museum. You know, I took him, you know, to the Hollywood sign. We did all this Hollywood stuff and glam stuff. And I took him to different, you know, couture shops here in Hollywood. He met all my photographer friends, and that's how everybody was working with the photographers that I was working here in Hollywood. So I remember one time I said, you know, he said something about, well, what's the price of that? I said, well, I guess you can't afford it if you have to ask for the price. Can't afford lingerie. But yeah, if you have to ask for a price for something, you can't afford it. And I was broke-ass little girl eating top ramen. You know, I buy clothes and keep them tagged and return them. And I was very transparent with him, you know, about, you know, my starving days and all of that. But it was certainly a great experience writing with him. And I always thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to write these songs with him. And then I don't have to wear my corset on the road anymore. And I can have other singers. Like when I went to see Susanna Hoffs, I fell in love with Hero Takes a Fall. I fell in love with the Bangles. I was hanging out with them, and I just said, oh, Prince is going to love her. And I said, I'd like for you to meet Prince, and there's a song that I know is going to be perfect for you.
Prince saw our video, Hero Takes a Fall, and actually Apollonia said, you've got to get their record. So he got the record, and he loved it, and he came to our show at the Palace, and he stayed like an hour later for a party we were having, similar to this, but a lot smaller. And he waited. It was amazing. We had all assumed he wouldn't go to the party, but there he was, and I talked to him for about 40 minutes. It was very exciting.
And back to Prince, and he got upset at first. He was like, what do you mean giving away your songs? Like, well, I'm not giving anything away, but I really believe that she's going to be perfect. You're going to love her. So then I give him the tape, they meet, and then he invites me over to Le Parc. He goes, I want to show you something. So he puts on a tape, right? And it's the Hero Takes a Fall video. So they already met. He goes, you're right, she's going to do the song. And I was like, yes, because, you know, I'm a songwriter now. You know, my haikus and poetry are doing something effective so I could earn a living. And then he shows me the video, and she's doing this one bit with the little maid outfit, and she's kind of leaning, doing this really cute. He goes, you know what she looks like she's doing? And I was like, no. He goes, it looks like she's sitting on. I was like, and he got sexual, and he would confide in me like that sometimes, like brother and sister. And he would, because we never dated. And he would just, she's sexy. And I was like, I thought to myself, cha-ching, songwriting. And look what happened. It was great. And she talks about it. I put her in remember on Instagram, she did an interview back then about Apollonia, and she introduced us, and she gave Prince the tape. And
I don't, and you've never claimed that you wrote the music to any of this stuff.
No.
And I think
I'm not a musician.
I think that's when people think that you say this stuff, that they go, well, she wrote.
I wrote the music for Purple Rain.
You showed the riff for this. Yeah. I don't think that's what you're saying. I think what you're saying is
what I'm saying is that I did the riff in Purple Rain for real.
Oh, I did not know that. That's fascinating to know. But I think that what people need to understand is what you're saying is you contributed to his thing, his lyrics to something. And I think that, again, I don't know other than he had people throughout his career. People say a joke and people would say, I don't know, because I'm not a songwriter, I don't know what the difference between writing or inspiring or whatever. I don't know this stuff. This is an area that is completely alien to me. Speaking of aliens. But I don't know. I don't know. But it's fascinating to hear that this is the genesis of the song. Right, exactly. And so I don't know. Legalities, all this stuff. Yep. That's stuff I don't even understand. Right. But I can say.
Well, me too.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Copyright and.
Well, I think even with,
publishing.
With some of these songs, even when he does say they're a co-writer, they often don't get the publishing. That's the other thing. It's publishing. Yep. I don't know. And again, he would be the guy to decide all this stuff or not. And he was, even with engineering credits on some albums, he would not be editing, having Peggy McCreary credited or Susan Rogers not credited on some of Sheila's albums because he wanted to keep some of the stuff secret. So he would, on the work orders, it would often, if you look at the cover of this book, it says engineer Prince. Right. So the engineer is not even getting credit for, if you look at it, it says Susan Rogers is the assistant engineer. Now, she'd been his engineer by this point for years. Yeah. So his, from what I've figured out, and again, I wasn't there, and I always have to make sure that there's a caveat of that, is he did enjoy having the credits of all this stuff himself. Oh, yeah. And I don't know, so I don't know what any of the stories behind some of the stuff other than what people tell me. And it's fascinating to see and hear and then see lyrics and see, he had the family album, the credits on the album are St. Paul, Jerome, and all these people. And they've come out and said, I didn't really write that. So he, I think David Z said something one time about all the people or why did he give credits like this out and not, or sometimes, but with giving the credits out, it was often because he wanted it to seem like there was an army of people doing this stuff. But it was really a lot of it him. But if you're the only guy doing it, you're going to have to find muses. You're going to have to find people. I don't know what the line is of what is simply inspiring somebody or co-writing or
doing the work.
I don't know. And because I'm not in the room. And I know that my wife has told me things with my books. My wife is my best editor. I was going to say editor. She goes through my stuff because she's a fan, but not a mega fan, not a total nerd like I am. And she'll say, "Who is this person? You need to reintroduce this." And she'll say, "Here's a better way to phrase this." Yeah. Now, is she a co-writer? No, she's an editor and she's helping me. But I also make sure that she's credited in my books. And I said my first book is dedicated to her. Yeah. And so it's like this is it gets up to the person writing to how they issue that. And at times there's people that would love to be paid. I'm sure. I don't doubt that.
I've never been paid for those two songs, Glamorous Life and Manic Monday. And the one thing that Prince was doing was before he transitioned, 6 weeks prior to him transitioning, when we saw him up in San Francisco. Prior to that, he was doing God's work. He was doing a lot of great things for people. Right. Some of his collaborators he had helped out financially. He was paying hospital bills. And he spoke to Susan, Brenda, and myself and said that he was going to do due diligence and to pay us. He was going to pay us for, me for the songs and Apollonia 6. He mentioned numbers and everything. We had meetings. on this. There's witnesses, and recently, there's been depositions. It's, the irony that all this is happening. But the one thing that Seth and I do realize is that in this podcast, we've had Purple family members here, and the stories are verbatim the same, with Prince not giving credits, not paying, the behavior. But I do know that he was doing the right thing before he transitioned.
I don't think any of you are taking away from the singular genius that he was.
No, never.
I think that none of you are saying, the chipping away at what he was, because literally he was Prince. And
yes.
He is the standard of all this stuff. And there's the fact that he was Prince from the beginning to the end with a different crowd all throughout. I don't think you guys are taking away from that. But all of you guys were in the room.
Right.
And know stories that other people do.
Yep.
And I think that's the fascinating thing to me is the background stories of some of this stuff. And again, there's times that stories completely contradict that I'm going, wow, this person says they were there for the singing, or, somebody saying, I didn't have any background singers on this song, and then somebody else comes and says, I sang background on this song. Prince didn't want to tell them, whatever it was. And you're going,
right.
Oh, wow, okay. Or conflicts between, and he loved having conflicts between people.
Oh, sure. He would rattle our cages.
Set them up to,
of course.
And because he'd feel like, and several people told me, Susanna Melvoin said this, Jill Jones has said this, that he would set people up to say, okay, Apollonia's doing this.
Yes.
And then somebody go, I better do that. And he'd think that this is going to make everybody's game up and trying to get people angry at people. And I thought,
he did that.
He's a bit of a manipulator on this stuff. But
big time.
Svengali type guy that would put this stuff together. It's fascinating to see. And because this is stuff that as fans, we don't know.
Yeah.
And to know why that there's this whole game being played.
Yeah, it's control.
And people, there's a reason why people left after a little. Not just because he would ask you to leave or just stop calling, but there's some people that just said, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
I can't walk around in lingerie anymore.
Yes.
I can't do this.
Right.
And not that they don't have the affection. It's just it's a turn and burn thing. And also he is a guy, I'm a big fan of Bowie, who the next album's going to be different and maybe a different cast of characters. And I'm telling you a different story on this next album, and I may not need these people around me. I've gotten what I can from this, and now I need to play in this garden. Yeah. And I think that's got to be difficult at times, because he, and like Bowie, would just leave people behind and not all of a sudden you may see
casualties.
Yes, exactly. You were in the wake.
Yep.
And he would be the person that keeps going on. So the consistency is him. And that's got to be a tricky one too, because we all, every job we have, we all think this is going to keep going. This job, whatever it is, I can see me doing this for 20 years.
I thought that as a songwriter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as Seth knows, some time goes by, a couple of years go by, 3 years, and then I get the call, Prince is going to call. And then the second person, Prince is going to call. And then finally it's like, hey, hello. And he says he has a new movie called Graffiti Bridge. He says it's a sequel to Purple Rain. And I was like, what? I said, did William Blinn write it? So you got Al Magnolia, or you got another, what's going on? So he explained, he goes, no. And he said, it's written. I'm going to send it to you. And I was like, okay. So he sends it to me, mails it to me, and I read it. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a piece of poop. It was horrible. It was just really bad. And he calls me and he goes, what do you think? And I said, honestly? And I was always straight up with him. Right. I said, it's terrible. I said, it's a piece of shit. I said that on the phone. Wow. I said, it's a piece of shit. And then he goes on to tell me that I'm going to star in it. It's a sequel of Purple Rain. And then he goes, another thing, because my lawyers, Jacob Bloom and Deckham, Jake Bloom had negotiated for a sequel for Purple Rain ahead of time. And there was, the salary was 6-7 figures something, right? And I was like, yes. He says, you're going to make the movie, but you have to forfeit your income. I go, what do you mean? I go, you want me to put my money into the production, but then I get points, right? So there'll be a producer, executive producer. That's fine. I would have done it for, scale and then give me points. And he says, no. And he goes, he started imitating me. He goes, whenever he didn't agree with you, he would imitate you. He goes, she wants points. And I said, you want me to work for free? I basically already worked for free because I made $30,000 in Purple Rain, 6 weeks work. I thought I was a billionaire. So he's like, no. And that was it. I didn't do it. And we still were friends. He would still call for something else, but I think he respected the fact that I was very honest with him, and I would say no. When there was an incident, and only Seth knows, I'm going to say it publicly now, with, with the incident, of him not, giving me the credit for, Glam Life and Manic Monday. One time I drove over he had rented a house up in Beverly Hills. I drove. And I was really upset, PMS, and I went, beep, honked, a little sedan, some car, beep, beep, beep. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night. And I took out, like John Cusack, this big old radio. And I grabbed it, and it was Glam Life. I had the tape. I co-wrote this, Prince. And then I put the other song, right, Manic Monday. I co-wrote. I was having a meltdown. Then I see a little kind of a move of a curtain. Remember I told you I saw? And I was like, is that him or one of his many girlfriends? And I just was out there for about 10, 15 minutes screaming, yelling, honking, beep. And I was like, well, he's not going to come out, I guess. I better go home. And I went home and I cried, not too far, down on Kings Road, down by, BH here. And that was it. Big mansion, didn't come out. And I did my Cusack moment, had a little meltdown about my 2 songs that he didn't pay me.
When was this?
This was, I don't know, 86, 5?
Well, those songs came out in 85, 86.
6, yeah. It was a little bit after 87,
So it was before
86?
Graffiti Bridge?
Yes.
Because Graffiti Bridge was 90.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it was before. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This is a story I've never heard.
Yeah. I could find the house too, Tower Road or something. He had, yeah.
Wow.
I remember I just went out there and a couple of F words,
mad.
I think. I was, I was
Wow.
PMS and I was angry. I was just mad. And the little curtain moved and I was like, ah!
Well, he probably had fans that were coming out to the house and doing.
Oh, he heard
stuff.
my voice.
Oh,
yeah. He heard this Mexican woman's voice already. Because I think I threw some like, abre la pinche puerta,
Want official Apollonia merchandise? Visit ApolloniaKotero.store and ApolloniaKotero.com.